This is Varun here, and as promised in my last video, I intend to make a short three-part video series on how to taste and appreciate wines using your senses. So you have the nose of the wine, or as we say, the smell of the wine, where you can experience all the various aromas and the bouquet that comes from a glass of wine, right? And then you have the actual tasting of the wine, where you can taste the wine on your palate, trying to experience all the acidity, the texture, as well as the flavors that are in the glass of wine. But having said that, there is one sensory aspect that comes before all this, right? And that is the appearance of the wine. So what exactly can you tell just by looking at a glass of wine? So ideally, you want to fill your glass just 1/3 full with wine. And you want to hold it against a white background. So something like a white piece of paper, preferably with some writing on it. And you want to hold it at a 45-degree angle against this white paper. And you want to look at the center of the wine. Now, by looking at the center of wine, you're looking for whether the wine is opaque or whether it's transparent. Now, the glass that I'm holding here, I can actually see the writing quite clearly. Even if I put my finger or my hand just right behind the glass, I can actually see all my fingers. So this here is actually indicative of a light-bodied wine. So a light style of wine basically means lesser alcohol, lesser tannins, and also you might find a higher level of acidity, and you're looking at more of your red fruit category. So you probably get more like red cherries, raspberry, red plum. That's the kind of red fruit that you're gonna find in these kind of wines. If your glass of wine is darker, deeper, then that is indicative of a richer and a more intense characteristics of wine. So the wine is most likely going to be a full-bodied wine with a lot of tannins, with high alcohol, and you're going to see a lot more of your dark fruit characteristics. So it's more like your dark plums, dark cherries, blackberry, and yeah, all in that spectrum of fruits. In the case of your white wine, if your wine is more paler in color, that means the wine is lighter in style and is more refreshing. On the other hand, if your white wine is deeper and more golden in color, that is indicative of a richer style of white wine, and possibly you're going to see influence of oak as well. So next, let's talk about how we can try and deduct the age of the wine. So whether it's a young wine or an old wine, right? So this we can do by talking about rim variation. So a rim variation is the difference in color from the center of the glass to the edge of the liquid. So if you look at this picture here, you have a line that's running right through the center of the glass. On the left side, you're looking at a young Cabernet Sauvignon, and on the right side, you're looking at an older Cabernet Sauvignon. So the difference between the young and the old is basically the rim variation. The old Cabernet Sauvignon has got a wider rim variation, which is actually quite indicative of its age, and the young Cabernet Sauvignon has got a very thin rim variation, or like a marginal variation right there. So keep in mind as well, the older the wine is, the more see-through or the more transparent the wine gets, because it tends to lose a lot of its color over time. Also notice how the color of the Cabernet Sauvignon has changed over time from more of a ruby color to a more brown or a garnet shade of color over time. So the last part of the appearance of the wine is what we call the tears of the wine, or as some say, the legs of the wine. So this you can do by giving your glass a nice swirl, and then you'll notice that there's going to be these viscous droplets running down on the sides of the glass, which is what we call the tears of the wine. Now remember, the more the tears of the wine, the higher the alcohol content, which is basically telling you that the wine that you're about to drink is actually quite full-bodied and a lot more intense in flavors. The glass that I'm holding here, in fact, I can only see maybe just 2 or 3. I don't think you can see it from there, but there's just like 2 or 3 droplets, which means it's actually got less alcohol. And finally, the slower the tears run down the glass, that means there's a lot more residual sugar. So if you take, for instance, a glass of port wine and you give that glass a swirl, you're going to see a lot more viscous and sticky legs coming down. That's because a port wine has got really high amounts of residual sugar. So I want to conclude by saying that just by looking at the depth and the intensity of the color of the wine as well as the tears of the wine, you can make a fairly good assumption of the style of wine even before you smell or taste the wine.